Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Weighing In, the League of Legends talk show. And boy, oh boy, have we got an incredible show for you today. We're going to be wrapping up week 1 of groups. NA will be crying, EU maybe in the middle, LCK
Nah.
in China definitely happy, I think. That man that you can hear already trying to argue with me is my constant co-host, Ollie. How have you been for this first weeks of World's group stage games?
I've been I've been good. I'm very happy with the result. Like you mentioned, NA are speed running their way to the airport at the moment, whilst
Yeah.
EU are speed running their way to the finals. So, you know,
Wow, that's some bold words. I don't know about that, but we'll be breaking down all of the groups and all of the games that went on, talking about the best and the worst teams, what we think about the compositions and the individual outplays. It really has been a phenomenal Worlds already, and I absolutely cannot wait to see more.
yeah, indeed. So, shall we just jump straight into it and talk about Group A this week?
Absolutely. There is so much to talk through for every group. This is the longest notes I think me and you have ever made.
Yeah.
So, without ado, Group A, which team would you like to talk about first?
For me, the standout team was obviously G2. In this group, for me, I mean, I kind of predicted them to just go 3-0, but they actually ended up dropping a game to Liquid, who did have came in from the plains, had a disappointing first two games, but then able to beat G2 was just a
Yeah,
complete shock in my opinion.
very decisively as well. I mean, this was a phenomenal game from TL. It wasn't just G2 maybe underperforming slightly. I really do think that Team Liquid were able to outperform individually, especially when we look at some of their traditional carry players. We look at Jensen on his Oriana playing absolutely out of his mind. It was super impressive going up against the strongest EU mid laner in the form of Caps.
Yeah, no, and people obviously talked about this mid lane matchup. It was kind of a highlight for this game. People saying, can Jensen really have a chance in the lane? And yeah, he absolutely just you know seemed to just do something that got under Caps and like just destroyed him in that mid lane. Really playing out of his mind, like you said, on the Oriana and Broxer again having a good game on his Graves, which you saw him play a lot in the play-ins. Um,
Yeah, it was great, and I think we talked about this last week. But Broxer on these junglers where he doesn't have to interact as much with his teammates in the laning phase looks really really good. I think he got the Graves twice, and only one of them was the win, obviously. But when he can just farm up and not necessarily impact the lanes as much, I think that's when this guy is really able to kind of start to shine.
Yeah, no, especially against this G2 team where you have really strong laners, and if you gank them, it's likely that they'll try and turn it around on you, or Jankos will be there
Mm,
straight away. So if you put Broxer on someone more like the Graves or Lilia, for example, these more farming champions
yeah.
who tend to keep up in CS with their laners respectively, um, he seems to perform really well and, securing those objectives for his team, turning kills into objectives, etc. He did his job really, really well in this game. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
same can't be said about the other two games though for Team Liquid.
No. Unfortunately, they dropped to both Suning and Match in the other two games. And those were quite convincing games, unfortunately. It really did look like Team Liquid, things weren't quite clicking until they came up against G2.
Yeah, no, and it's kind of odd because we had both said that G2 would be the strongest in this group, and then for Team Liquid to lose
Mm.
against both Machi and Suning, and then take quite a dominating win over G2 was, for me, it just kind of blew my expectations out of the water,
Yeah.
really. But is this the change that Team Liquid needs to see? Having that win against G2 is obviously going to fill them with confidence going into week two, and so
Mm.
do you think they'll be able to win more games next week against Suning, Matchy? I mean, and we know they all play next week together.
Yeah. So I definitely expect them to win more games. I think the really interesting argument is, can they win enough to knock either G2 or Suning out of the top two spots? And I do think the momentum that you're talking about, securing their first win, will be really impactful because being in Group A, they're going to be the first team to play in the second week, which only starts on Thursday. So they have 1 day's break from their big win against G2 before they go into playing all 3 matches on the same day.
Yeah.
And so if they've cracked it and they start building up the momentum, scrims go really well on Wednesday, they come in with some confidence, we definitely could see TL take some more games. I think they looked semi-competitive against Matchy, although the Matchy laners were performing really well in that game, surprisingly. Maybe that's a win they could take. Maybe they can win a game against G2 or Suning, but that might just put them into third place. It's going to be really, really close, I think, that second to third spot.
Yeah, like we were saying, with the whole momentum aspect, like you said, the games for Group A are all on Thursday, which is just 2 days away from us now. So I have 1 day to prepare. But then the first game for Team Liquid is against G2, and if they are able to take this game, then that could again propel them even further, to play against Matchy and Suning later in
Yeah,
the day, and maybe even take games off them.
yeah,
So this could be a really
100%.
it's going to be a really big day for Team Liquid if they can pick up some wins. Then I could see them going into that second place in Group A.
Mm. And who would you predict that they take that second place from? Is it going to be G2 or Suning falling out of playoffs contention?
I would say probably Suning falling out just because we've seen G2 already beat Suning, and we know they are the better team in my opinion anyway, and that's who I already have predicted to come first in the group. So I think G2 are kind of probably just had a bad game against Team Liquid. We'll see if Team Liquid can take another game off G2, but I'm not convinced. But I believe Team Liquid probably will play better this week and take at least one game from Suning, maybe another game from Matchy, we'll see, and go for that second
Yeah,
place.
no, I definitely agree. I think that if either of these teams, if either of G2 and Suning don't make it to playoffs, it definitely would be Suning of those two. Although the individual members of Suning have been looking really good. Like we had a crazy performance from SOFM on the Nidalee against Team Liquid, being the standout carry. I just think individual power is stronger from G2, and that means that the team power, the kind of cohesion that Team Liquid have shown when playing around objectives, could be able to catch Suning out in their in their matchup in week 2.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think something for Team Liquid to really focus on is their aggression. I believe in their game against G2, they played a much more kind of aggressive style, and it benefited them really really well. But
Yeah,
against Suning and Matchy, they seem to kind of play a more don't know, playing for kind of late game style where it's never going to work against these the LPL teams. Like they're just going to capitalize on your small mistakes, your aggression, snowball a lead. So it will be great to see Team Liquid come in with more aggression into their next games and see what they can do.
yeah, definitely. And it's not necessarily something we expected from them coming into the tournament, but it was great to see against G2. And like you say, if they can keep it rolling, who knows what can happen? Because all of these matches are played on 1 day, plus tiebreakers being played on 1 day. If they have an incredible performance, they're still not out of the running in this group.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, if they can put they put in the work that they did, I'm sure they're feeling confident after smashing G2. So
Mm.
anything can really realistically happen. So and if G2 lose that game, then their confidence is already going to be knocked going 0-2 against Team Liquid. That can't do
Yeah,
wonders for the EU team.
no, and, no, definitely not. And I think that from Group A, we definitely saw the best game of the first week of Worlds. I don't know if you saw it. It was that G2 Suning matchup going back and forth constantly. It was an absolutely incredible game to watch.
Yeah, I agree, and I think just for me, some of the standouts from that game were SOFM, obviously, being
Mm.
just an absolute beast in the jungle.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, G2 were able to win it, but it was a surprisingly close game in my opinion. More so than I had really
Mm.
expected, because I would have just expected, G2 to capitalize on, their strong points, their mid lane matchup, etc. But no, Suning made it a close match, and it was, like you said, probably the most interesting to watch.
Yeah. And I think it was brilliant to see the bot lane kind of stepping up. Perks didn't have an outstanding performance, but he didn't show some of the weaknesses that he showed in Europe. It was Mickey X who really stood out and won the game, taking control of lots of the engages, lots of the team fights. Was absolutely outstanding, and the way the team seemed so coordinated in following up on those gives me a lot of hope for a rematch against Suning, which I think G2 look to take significantly more convincingly.
Yeah, no, like you said, Mickey playing out of his mind, definitely the MVP for that match in my opinion. Just styling on them really, just saying G2, look, get on my back.
Yeah,
We're gonna go. We're gonna win this game. Caps, come on me. You're just gonna one shot people. I'm gonna lock them down, and we're gonna take this game. And G2's initiative to kind of put Mickey in that position and then have the team follow him as well, just was really really good coordination and team play from G2 to win that game.
yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. I think that it's definitely going to be one of the best games of Worlds. Definitely is so far. So if anyone missed that one, I definitely suggest to go back and watch that one because your time will not be wasted at all. Um, do you have any other points on Group A? One of the more one-sided groups so far,
Um,
but definitely still some upsets to be had.
I wouldn't. I don't have anything else to add other than the things we already talked about. Like that second and third spot is something that I'm definitely gonna be keeping my eye on the records
Mm,
for these teams and see who does well.
yeah.
And we've got.
Do
Go on, sorry.
do you predict TL to make it out, or do you think it's going to be G2 Suning? Give me your ranking come the end of Thursday.
I would probably say G2 are going to be in first still, and then for me, I don't think Team Liquid just have it in them to take that second place. I'd still say Suning in second.
Mm,
I expect Team Liquid to take the game off Matchy, so I would put them in third, and then Matchy probably in fourth, in my opinion. How about you?
yeah. So I think it's really close. I definitely expect G2 to come out at the top of the league, but probably losing one of their games. I don't know whether or not they'll lose to Suning or to Team Liquid, but I think with the way those games went, losing to Team Liquid, having a really close game against Suning, I think that could be where they might drop one game. But I think a 4-2 record is probably still good enough to get out in first place.
Yeah, definitely.
Then it comes down to the TL Suning. I definitely, unfortunately, think the Matchy will be in last place, and I think it might genuinely come down to a tiebreaker between Team Liquid and Suning. I think there's not an impossible chance that Team Liquid managed to beat maybe G2 again, maybe definitely beat Matchy, and then they beat either G2 or Suning, putting them at 3-3. I also believe that Suning will probably beat Matchy but lose to G2 and then maybe beat Team Liquid. So either I think that Team Liquid will have a tiebreaker against Suning, or they'll just be out. They'll just be out in second place in front of them. If it goes to a tiebreaker, God, who knows? Honestly, um, uh, I think that maybe the experience from a lot of the Team Liquid players might allow them a slight advantage in a tiebreaker match, but it's so hard to call.
Yeah, no, and if it does come down to that tiebreaker, like you said, it's going to be whichever team's better on the day, really. With their
Mm,
records all being so close at the moment. Like Group A for me was
yeah.
one which I thought, okay, Suning G2 are obviously going to just dominate this group, but no, it's actually been closer than I
Mm,
expected. With Matchy picking up a
yeah.
game, Team Liquid beating G2, so
Yeah.
anything can really happen. It probably will come down to those tiebreakers, which is again going to be really exciting.
Yeah. It definitely will be a super, super, super exciting group, and I cannot wait to watch the rest of these games
Indeed.
in this group, especially because it's the first group we get to watch. So it will really see how well these teams have adapted with only one full day's break.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And so, any other thoughts on Group A, or shall we move on to Group B?
No, let's move to Group B, and the only team in this group who hasn't dropped a game yet is Zamwon, and boy oh boy, they look unstoppable.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Damwon obviously were the first seed from the LCK. Everyone expected them to kind of just show their Korean dominance, and they've done exactly that. Especially in this group where they don't really have too many teams to really worry about. The only team that they kind of
Yeah,
were expected to maybe go toe to toe with was JD Gaming.
was JD, yeah,
Um, but
and they destroyed JD. That game was phenomenally one-sided. It was a genuinely amazing team comp from Damwon. I absolutely loved it, and it's very standard for them, but that's not a bad thing. And it was just from start to finish, absolute domination. They seemed to win almost every lane, and then just roll it through team fights to the end.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, the key players, and especially this matchup, was definitely Showmaker. For me, just showing the Chinese how to play that TF. Absolutely
Mm.
lane dominance, roam dominance, objective dominance, everything. He just played perfectly in this matchup. And alongside his team, nothing could really go wrong. And like you said, they just look
Yeah.
unstoppable, especially Showmaker.
Mm. Yeah, it was those solo lanes that really stood out. Along with Shomiki, you had Nuguri showing up massively. They gave him a carry pick, which is exactly what we wanted to see coming into Worlds. We don't want to see this guy on tanks because we know how amazing he can be on carries. They give him the Camille, and they absolutely were able to control side lanes so well and not give JD a chance at any point throughout that game.
Yeah, exactly. And again, same goes for their other two games this week versus Rogue and PSG. More dominance from
Mm.
from the Korean side. Straightforward games, pretty much standard comps that we've seen
Yeah.
plenty of times from Damwon. Just simply just applying pressure, etc. Just great play from the team, like we've seen all year long from this team.
Yeah, and we did see the unique picks coming out of Nagarish, speaking to his confidence coming into Worlds, which is great to see. We saw him playing the Lulu top, playing it really well in a slightly slower game by Jam 1 against Rogue. But I think that simply speaks to the guy's confidence, which definitely was lacking in last year's Worlds.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, nothing bad can really be said about them this year, in my opinion.
Mm.
Just absolutely, styling in this group. Not much
Yeah,
else to
definitely.
really say. They are just
Like
clearly the best team in this group.
lane dominance throughout, objective control was unmatched. And this looks like they're kind of showing up and showing why so many people, including myself, put them as favourites for the tournament. And I think you can definitely argue they're looking the strongest in Worlds at the moment.
Yeah, I would say they definitely looking really strong. Especially for me, something that a lot of these teams do really well is their macro. So that's basically the way they turn kills into objectives, that kind of thing. The way they control the map, the way they read plays, etc., and how they decide to kind of move about. And this is something Damwon does really well. So if there's
Yeah,
three players top, Damwon will always be looking on the other map, looking around the map for another objective to take and another one on top of that, which is something that no other team apart from really like top esports or Genji have really done so far. Like just having those,
yeah,
whatever you can do, we can do better, and we'll do it better than that. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
they'll trade
100%.
one objective for two and just run down your mid whilst you're taking an outer turret. It's just something that they've always done really well is their macro, and alongside lane dominance and matchups, this just makes for such a strong team.
Mm. It's looking like they may be unstoppable at this year's World, so it would be phenomenal to see them go ahead. The other team in Group B that's looking really strong is JD, as we've alluded to. Although they struggled against Damwon, they were able to beat both PSG and Rogue. And I thought the game against PSG was especially interesting as it showed how strong this team can be with leaving so many flex picks open.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something we've talked about a lot is the idea of leaving those flex picks open and not really giving the enemy team any information even in the draft to try and
Yeah,
counter pick. And yeah, like you
yeah,
said, JD Gaming having a great game against PSG worked really well, and their draft was just like perfect, really. And this is
yeah,
something that Chinese teams do really, really well again. And Lu Mao obviously having an outstanding performance in this game. The Pantheon,
yeah.
he's probably one of the best
Was
supports at the moment.
mental. Yeah,
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
yeah.
Um,
Great to see that they're firing on all cylinders. And although they definitely struggled against Damwon in the first game, I expect their rematch on Friday to be significantly closer.
yeah, and something that I've seen recently is Riot for next season are going to try and shift Pantheon away from support with direct support nerfs for the champion. Um, So, I mean, which is probably good because right now he is just absolutely dominating bot lane. So, but everyone kind of already knew him as a solo laner. So yeah, that Riot are trying. It won't
Yeah,
affect Worlds at all, but Riot are trying to kind of put him back towards more solo lane, um, in top and mid or wherever he wants to play really. But yeah,
yeah. And it's great to see them using more of these unique picks while they're still available.
mm,
The the only other team in Group B to pick up a win was Rogue, and it's really unfortunate that they were a part of this group because they looked really good against PSG actually.
yeah, I agree. I think their one game that they picked up was versus PSG. Larson gets his Lucian, and
Yeah,
Lucian. This has been like a dominating champion so far in Worlds as well.
mm.
I'm not sure on his exact win rate. I think it is probably
I know it's
pretty
ridiculously
high,
high.
yeah. And it was throughout the regular season anyway. So leaving that kind of open just is it's a pick or ban champion really, and whoever picks it has a good chance of winning the game. But apart from that, Inspired playing
Mm.
really really well in jungle on carry picks. So this team, there is some hope. We saw some hope in this game, but it all really depends on which champions they get, the drafts, etc. But regardless, good objective control. And good performance from the whole team against PSG, which is the team who went 0-3, but this doesn't discredit their win from Rogue at all, I don't
Yeah,
think.
not at all. It's definitely great to see, um, and we'll kind of see how they go forward. Out of interest, Lucian has only been picked 4 times, only made it through 4 times, and has got 100% win rate.
There you
Just in
go.
case you wanted to know that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so a very strong pick, and Rogue giving us one of those 4 wins definitely shows that they still have potential. But at least personally, I don't expect them to pick up another win in this group. Would you?
I mean,
Sorry, a win against JD and Damwon.
yeah, no.
I expect them to beat PSG.
Yeah, no, I think the standings kind of are probably how they're going to stay for the rest of this group, with Dan 1 in first, JD Gaming second, Rogue in third, and then PSG in
Mm.
fourth. I don't see PSG really winning another game, to be honest. I think they might just go
Yeah,
0-6 in this group, and then Rogue going 2-4, losing against JD, and then Dan 1, for me, maybe 5-1, probably a 6-0 in this group.
yeah. I definitely think that we um, see Damwon come out first place. The only team that I could see them dropping a game to would be JD, but with how one-sided that first one was, even if it's closer, I still expect Damwon to come out on top because I don't see a weakness for a team like JD to attack right now. This just seems like almost a perfect, well-rounded team.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Dan 1 just like we've mentioned so many times, they're just completely unstoppable at the moment. I don't really see them losing against anyone other than JD Gaming, and even that is unlikely.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And then even if JD go on to lose against Damwon for a second time, I still expect them to beat both Rogue and PSG, like we've talked about, which would easily put them through on a 4-2 record in second place. Um, Unfortunately, with Rogue and PSG leaving us at that point.
Yeah, and I don't think Rogue will be too disappointed with leaving there because they did get a really really hard group. And
Yeah,
it was just two of the best teams in the world really to play
yeah,
against super hard. But taking games against PSG, I'm sure they're going to be happy with that consolation at least.
yeah,
But
definitely. Not going going and getting some wins rather than going winless will definitely be a bigger a victory um, than they might have expected. Um, and it would be great if they could take a win off of one of the top two teams in this group. But you know, if these two teams go on to take high spots, maybe even if maybe one or both of them appearing in the finals of the tournament, I don't think that Rogue can feel too bad.
no, no, and you never know if Rogue beat PSG and then they beat either Damwon or JD Gaming, and then JD lose to Damwon, we could see a tiebreaker between Rogue and JD, and
Yeah,
in that eventuality, that will be really really good for them. Even if they lose that
yeah,
tiebreaker, just making it
100%.
there,
Yeah,
that would be
yeah,
really really
definitely.
good.
I think um, if they manage to take a game off of either of these top two teams, it would absolutely be incredible because, like I said, if either Damwon or JD go through, make it far, semi-finals or finals, which we expect either or both of them to do, being able to pick up a game is massive because we don't know how these teams are going to perform in best of fives. you know, Damwon may go undefeated in best of fives after dropping a game to Rogue in the group stage. So whatever kind of close games, tight wins that Rogue could get out of this group will definitely give them a massive amount of hope going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And Rogue's always been kind of team that have liked those best of ones. They didn't do especially well
Mm.
in the playoffs, so for them to kind of drop out here is a bit sad. But we'll see what happens. You never know. It could be a tiebreaker and they make it into the quarterfinals, and then you never know.
Yeah, definitely. So best of luck going to all of the teams in Group B. But I think both of us are predicting Damwon in first, JD Gaming in second, Rogue in third, and PSG Talon in fourth place.
Yes.
On to possibly, in my opinion, the most interesting group in the whole tournament and the closest group by far is Group C. Currently, we have Genji, Fnatic, and LGD at 2-1, and TSM with a really, really underwhelming first week at 0-3.
Yeah, no, I think there's something clearly just gone horribly wrong for the TSM side here. We were talking a bit before the show actually started about what the issue was, and we couldn't really
Mm,
put our finger on it. But for me, I feel like it's just some kind of lack of coordination from
yeah.
TSM. In all three of their games, they didn't really seem to know what they were doing. Even in drafts, it kind of just looked like it was a bit all over the place for this team. Didn't really have a clear game plan in mind. Even when they got that good draft against LGD,
Mm.
they weren't really able to execute the game plan super well, and falling behind early game just didn't do them any favors at all, really.
Yeah, it just seems like something isn't quite clicking. This isn't the TSM that we came to see in the playoffs, making a really inspired lower bracket run. It just kind of seems like all the plays are a little bit disjointed and they're all falling slightly flat because they're coming so close to having great plays so many times, but they're never quite picking the right moment to re-engage the correct target. They're not all focusing. It's just something isn't quite right going on within this team.
Yeah, and I want to highlight the game between TSM and Gen G, which happened yesterday. Um,
Yeah.
TSM had a great early game, picking up two early kills. it
Yeah,
seemed to be like nothing was going wrong, and then they just started to try and force objectives, force fights and stuff like that, in which Genji would push them off, grab themselves a Drake, grab themselves a tower, get the gold lead, despite being, I think, maybe 5 kills down at maybe like 15 minutes, Genji still having the
yeah,
gold lead. And then,
yeah,
having things like their ruler on Ezreal, which is just so sublime to watch for me. Like, ruler playing Ezreal,
yeah.
there's not really much you can say about that other than it's just incredible, and especially if he's got gold lead, which
Mm,
they did in this game. It's just super unfortunate for TSM that they
mm.
had a good start in the early game. They throughout all of their 3 games they didn't have bad starts to the game. Against LGD, early game, again picking up first blood, I'm pretty sure, and then
Yeah.
against Fnatic, they didn't have a great start, so that kind of snowballed. But they did get themselves back into the game
Mm.
versus Fnatic. But then,
Yeah.
just it seems to be their mid game is the problem for me for TSM.
It's definitely the mid game, and I just feel like these drafts are not driving me crazy. Like you look at the game, like you said, versus of TSM versus Genji. This is a quintessential TSM draft where
Yeah,
they're able to get the Renekton Nidalee combo. We had Bjergsen on Zillion. We had double lift on the Senna, which he's played so many times. But although all of these champions are things that TSM have played throughout the playoffs in North America, this team comp sucks.
yeah,
It does. There's no damage. Who's going to do damage? It's basically just the Nidalee, but she drops off, as does the Renekton. The Senna's not going to come online for a really long time. And at that point, she's going to be the only source of damage, which is not something that she can actually do. She needs to be supplemented by other high damage carries. Something like an Oriana from Bjergsen would have totally transformed this, having the defensive capabilities through the shielding, but actually doing more damage. It just feels like they keep giving their opponents these really strong picks, giving Fnatic and Evelyn, for instance, for self-made seems silly,
mm,
and not kind of picking up correct counters or correct team comps. Everyone on the team's getting what they consider comfort picks, but even in the draft phase, the team isn't meshing.
yeah. Agreed. And highlighting that Zillion that you talked about, not having damage to kind of back it up, where is just like a super poor choice
Mm.
for me because, even though Zillion has that Chrono Shift available, and he saved his teammates a few times with that, but if
Yeah,
he would chrono shift, the rest of Gen G would just completely dive on them, and then they would die as soon as they
yeah,
came back to life. And the
yeah.
casters
And
highlighted this as well.
it totally nullified the Zillion pick and made it almost pointless, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and without consistent damage from a mid lane or consistent CC, it's just like you are just a revival bot, and you'll die eventually, and then your team gets swept, and we've seen that happen. And unfortunately, we've seen Bjergsen have some incredible games on Zillion, but this was definitely not one of them for me.
Yeah, it's super disappointing, and I definitely expect this team to perform better in week two. But being 0-3 after the first week puts you in such a difficult position to even start to think about getting out of the group.
Yeah, exactly, and it's going to be really tough for them next week, playing
Yeah,
against the same 3 teams that they've already lost to. Um, and speaking on the rest of the group, the rest of the group are all actually at the same record in 2-1. Everyone
yeah,
picking up
it's
a game against TSM.
so close.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
everyone's gone kind of toe to toe here, and you know, uh, one of the games that I wanted to highlight, a game that pretty much just happened earlier today, was the Fnatic versus Gen G game. And this game for me
yeah,
was really surprising that Fnatic were able to capitalize on an early lead against Gen G,
mm,
picking up really early first blood. And Selfmade, after losing the game against LGD on Graves, confident enough in himself to pick the Graves again versus Genji and making it work
yeah.
really well. And it's just Ornn diff at the end of the day. The Ornn for Bwipo in top lane was ridiculous, and
Is
obviously,
massive. Yeah,
yeah, that first pick Ornn is always going to happen, no matter who it is really. If it's not banned, that's getting picked blue side first pick pretty much all the time.
yeah. Definitely, and he was able to play it really well. And I thought the team comp really fitted around that. We had a slightly more supportive AD carry for Reckless. But that was supplemented, like you
Mm.
brought up, from the Graves damage by Selfmade going a full lethality build. Really was able to take advantage of that early
Yeah.
game power that Graves can have into something like the Nidalee from Clid. And the thing that I found really impressive from Fnatic was their ability to focus massively on one player from the side of Gen G, and that was Ruler,
Yeah.
their strongest point going through. They were really able to just hit over and over again on both of the bot laners from Gen G. And if they can keep doing that and change it up, focus on a mid laner or a top laner when that's the strong point, it definitely gives me a lot of hope for Fnatic, which I didn't necessarily have. I was a little bit concerned with them coming in with some of the inconsistencies they had shown in Europe.
Yeah, no, and like you said, their ability to just completely shut down Ruler in their early game was something that I found really, really impressive. Like, there was about 3 ganks in the space of 5 minutes that put Ruler down about 0-3. I think he died pretty much every time they went
Yeah.
there and they collapsed on it, which was super impressive. And even though trade
Mm.
they may have traded some kills here and there, if they can just shut down Ruler and make it so he can't snowball a lead, which is obviously Gen G's strongest lane, bot lane, then
Yeah.
getting also at the same time getting self-made big on the Graves,
Mm.
it's super impressive stuff from Fnatic to kind of realize what they needed to do to win the game and then execute it really, really well.
Yeah. And this was almost like the opposite of the game that Fnatic had against LGD, which they lost. It just seemed like they didn't have a plan in that game.
Yeah, no, for me, it just kind of from coming out from the other 2 games against TSM and Gen G, they looked really, really kind of uncoordinated in this game. It looked like a
Mm.
complete 180 from the first game.
Yeah.
And self-made picking Graves like we said, and then just not being able to kind of snowball on it. Getting kind of just completely outclassed in the jungle by Peanut, to be honest, on his Kindred,
Mm.
who played really, really
Yeah.
well.
Looked amazing.
Yeah, perfect ults on his Kindred to keep his team alive, keep himself alive, and GA also having a really, really, really good game. So yeah,
Yeah.
LGD just
Yeah.
looking really
It
strong.
definitely was a standout performance from Xie. And I thought the really interesting thing from the side of LGD is this is the only game where they had really good objective control. They were able to get the Dragon Soul, which was the uh, Infernal Soul in that game. Um, and that's really, really impressive because this isn't necessarily a team who's shown throughout play-ins and the rest of the group stage great decision making around objectives, but they really did kind of step up in this game compared to some of their other ones.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it was definitely down to the decision making there from in my opinion, probably Peanut and GA. Those are the 2 players we highlighted.
Yeah,
Just looking like they kind of put the team on their back, which they are the 2 probably the strongest players from this team. Just able to kind of direct their team towards that win. And although
yeah,
TSM, I mean Fnatic didn't have the best game of their lives, nothing can be taken away from LGD and saying they
mm,
put Fnatic on their backs and won the
yeah.
game fair and square.
And the other person I'd like to highlight from that LGT side before we move on is Mark, actually, on the Nautilus, who's struggled a little bit in some of their other games, but really performed well. This is a classic pick for this guy, and he uses it perfectly, being able to engage, disengage. I even saw him interrupting some movement skills and stuff um, from the Graves, like using the root on the auto attack or the hook on the Q to interrupt the dash from the Graves to stop him moving around the fights as easily. It just seems like this guy has a real good understanding of the Nautilus, and when he's on it, it seems like LGD are very used to seeing that go button and following up on it.
Yeah, agreed. I think Mark was playing really, really well in this game. Nautilus, not one of the highest skill cap supports, obviously, but it's still
Mm.
super, super, super strong, and using it super effectively, like you said, to lock up those carries. and like in the graves, etc. So he can just like get the dredge line down and then ult him, knock him up, and he can't really move at all. And then with the follow-up CC from the rest of the team, it's kind of hard for that Graves to really be effective in team fights. And Mark did his job really, really well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great to see more uh, excellent support players coming out of China, because we know how many of them they've already got,
Yeah.
um, from both Top and JD Gaming with their phenomenal support players.
Hmm.
Um, any other points on this Group C before
Um,
we go towards predictions?
I don't think so really. Other than um, no, I mean this is going to be a really close group. Whatever happens, I think
Mm,
that this next week is going to be really interesting because we have three teams on the score 2-1, and then obviously TSM going 0-3. But if they're able to bounce back, win the next three games, then we could see a really, really, really close group here. But definitely close
yeah,
group between the top three teams.
yeah, I definitely think that we're going to see a better TSM, but their only chance, like you say, is going 3-0, and that would hand everyone else in the group a loss,
Mm,
meaning that it could be close. If one of the other teams only picks up one win, then TSM could leapfrog them, and maybe play for a tiebreaker. Say Genji goes 2-1, only losing to TSM.
mm.
It could be that TSM maybe get a tiebreaker, but even then, there's so many things that need to happen. We need LGD, Genji, or Fnatic to only pick up one other win and lose to TSM. It could happen, but it's really, really hard. TSM have definitely hampered them. And that's it. That's if they can even go 3-0
Yeah.
in this group
Yeah, and
in the second
like
week.
we were talking about PSG also having an own free week, it's super hard to come back from that in next week and like we said, pick
Yeah,
up those free games because their morale is obviously going to be quite low after the first week. Just
mm.
something needs to change and needs to change quickly if they're going to have a chance
Yeah,
at coming back into this group.
yeah. And of course, I think it is better um, to need a 3-0 in the second week. Where the first week games are all on separate games, you lose some of that momentum from day to day. But if TSM come into the first game of the day, which is them against Fnatic, which looked closer than any of the other games from TSM last week, if they stomp Fnatic, maybe they can start to build up some confidence and go in, take an hour's break, go into the next game, win that one, take an hour's break, go into the next game. If that can happen, maybe there's a chance, but it really does have to start with that first game of the day,
Mm.
on the Saturday. And if TSM don't win that, there's basically no way they're going to get out of this group, and that would also put a team like Fnatic in an excellent place.
Yeah, exactly. And this this is something we talked about before. That momentum on a day where you're playing three games. If you lose
Mm.
that first game, it's going to be super tough for them to, come back on stage and win the
Yeah,
next two. So it's all
yeah,
about
and
momentum.
it's only a 1 hour break, and if you lose, you have to be able to take a step back and reset.
Yeah.
And if they can't do that, it really will be all over for TSM if they can't take that first game. Who who do you predict making it out of this group?
At this point, I think just because I'm a massive Fnatic fanboy, obviously, I think Fnatic and Genji are my two favorites to come out of this group. After looking at how Fnatic played against Genji and
Mm,
against LGD, I think if they get those certain bans against LGD, they'll be able to take game off them as well, and maybe even another game off Genji, but it would definitely be a
Yeah.
lot closer than the first one. But then, for me, I don't have a lot of hope for TSM with that 0-3 week. Like we said, going to be really, really tough for them to get back into it. And for
Yeah.
LGD, I think they're a good team, and that second and third place for me is kind of contested still between Fnatic and LGD. It will be very, very close, but I think Genji will probably take first place in this group.
Yeah. I agree. I'm a TSM fan, and I would absolutely love to see TSM turn it around, perform a week two Cloud9
Yeah.
song miracle run, but I just don't see it happening. And if it does, I'll eat my words, and I will have learned that I should have stuck with my original
I mean,
predictions. But
it's a win-win, right?
who knows? Yeah, I think it is probably going to be Genji taking that first spot with Fnatic coming in second. Although we did see Fnatic take down Genji, I just think Genji's two other wins against LGD and TSM looked more convincing than Fnatic's other win. And I just think that Genji are likely to beat Fnatic in the second week of the group stage. And that might just springboard them in that first place. But we could very easily see some tiebreakers for first, second, or even third. There's so many possibilities, and it really will be possibly the most exciting day to watch from week two.
Yeah, this group's gonna be. It all comes down to the day, really. Which teams can perform with it being so close right now. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it comes down to the day, and it definitely will be a super exciting day. So make sure you get on your computer early that day and watch those games.
Yeah,
Because I think,
definitely. And expect more than the 6 games that they've got, because if this group doesn't go to tiebreakers, I would genuinely be
yeah,
surprised.
definitely. I think with how close it is now, we're almost guaranteed some tiebreakers for this group.
Mm. Yeah. Um, On to our last group of the day. It's Group D, and I think we should definitely start with the other undefeated team in the form of Top Esports. Many people's favourites for the tournaments, definitely coming out strong and showing why they definitely have to be considered a favourite.
Oh yeah, I think this team Top Esports is just super impressive right now. Um, the ability for all of them to really pick whatever the fuck they want really and still win those
Mm.
games like against
Yeah,
they seem to just be picking champs that they were comfortable on like against
yeah.
DRX having I mean Knight having great game on Nocturne mid, which is
On
something
the
you only
Nocturne,
really
yeah,
see in China.
was phenomenal. I can't remember. I'm just looking up how many bans DRX used. It was 4 separate bans against Knight. They banned his Lucian, his Syndra, his Galio, and his Oriana. And he still comes out. He pulls out the
Yeah.
pocket pick, the Nocturne, which is something he said in an interview afterwards that he was really excited to use. Um, and he dominated. He really did. He played it perfectly. It looked like he had always been playing this champion.
Yeah, exactly, and like you said, just able to just dominate the game. And it's only really something we see in China, the Nocturne mid, but Knight, yeah, you can't
Yeah,
really ban this man out. You can ban as many mid laners as you want, but this man's always gonna have something else to pick and just absolutely roll with in the mid lane. But another player from Top Esports that really impressed me as well was 369, especially on
yes,
on picks like the Jax. He just absolutely dominated on his Jax. It is terrifying to see this man lock in Jax.
yeah. I think it's definitely something teams are going to have to consider if they don't have an answer for. Basically, just banning it in either the first or second rounds, because he looks so convincing, so in control of the game the whole way through. He never seems to overextend and make mistakes, whether it's in the laning phase or when he's side laning. And even though Jax isn't something that we think of as a team fighting champion, he performs really well on it.
Yeah, exactly. And even when he's getting caught out, there was a couple of times in the game today where he was caught. Not today, sorry. I can't remember if it was today. Where he got caught out.
It was
He
today.
got
Yeah,
caught out a little bit on his jacks, but was still able to
yeah,
pick up 2 kills and trade his life for 2 kills, which is like always worth because then a team like Top Esports is going to convert that into map pressure and even an objective in cases. So this pick of jacks is just so scary. And he's another player on Top Esports, which seems to be a theme which you can't really ban him out. You can't really ban champions because this man
yeah,
again has a very vast and varied champion pool alongside Knight.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, and quietly in the background for this team, Jackie Love has been performing
Oh,
phenomenally well. Um, Picking up a couple of games of Senna, taking a more supportive role. Well, no, sorry, 3 games of Senna. My bad. Whoops. Um, 3 games of Senna, taking a slightly more supportive role, but still performing phenomenally well when it comes to those mid to late game team fights. We've seen him excel with uh, his positioning and his damage output and healing output on that champion throughout the fights.
yeah, no, I really, really, really love Jackie Love Senna. I think his ability to farm up on the champion until that mid game and then just be outputting ridiculous amounts of damage. Like I'm pretty sure he had
Mm.
something like fucking 11 CS a minute in one of those games, just farming constantly
Yeah,
while still
he's
having a positive KDA of like 4-0, and then
yeah.
being able to just decimate in that late game.
It's incredible how the team can function with him on a side lane, just slowly picking up farm by himself, powering up on that late mid game power pick. Um, not the team's not just waiting for that point; they are propelling the whole team forward into the mid game through really aggressive trades around towers and other objectives.
Yeah, and what was it? Yuyanja on support again, able to kind of put Jackie Love ahead early game, and then able to roam, leave Jackie Love just farming, getting that solo experience as well as the solo gold, and also getting his stack so his range is increased.
Yeah.
Just super well played from both of these bot laners. They seem again like we talked about with Damwon to be a team that is kind of unstoppable in their own group.
Yeah, you actually beat me to the point that I was just about to ask you. Because earlier on I said that I thought Denmark was the most convincing team in the first week of Worlds, and I wanted your opinion because we only have two 3-0 teams. We have Damwon from Group B and JD from Group D. So, in your opinion, who looked the most convincing and the strongest team in the first week of
For
Worlds?
me, I would, even though I was thinking Top Esports were probably my favourites to win this whole tournament, I would say Damwon probably had a better week one just because they literally just
Mm,
stomped every single game they played, whereas the DRX from
yeah,
Group D put up a fight at least put up a little bit of a
a
fight.
surprisingly close
Uh,
game. Yeah. I would say it's surprisingly
yeah,
close.
exactly. Whereas Damwon just kind of stomped these games like it was solo queue, and they
Yeah.
look like the scarier team right now.
I have to agree 100%. I don't know. Um, I don't necessarily know what more Top can do to prove that they are going to be so one-sided, but just performing slightly better in some of these games, having fewer really close games, will be the thing that could tilt them in this second week to what we would both consider to be the favourites for the tournaments because statistics show throughout their regular season and playoffs in the LPL, they definitely have the statistics to prove that they could be the best team in this tournament. It's just about showing up in every one of these games, and it seems crazy that we're arguing who is the most dominant out of two 3-0
Yeah.
teams, but that's the case we've got with two giants coming in from both of the eastern major
Yeah,
regions.
undoubtedly, and these two teams have obviously proven themselves. I mean, we were the ones saying, these teams are probably going to do really, really well. They're our favourites, and they've gone and proved it that they are the best teams in the world,
Yeah,
in my opinion. Playing against, I mean, Damwon playing against the second seed from China, Top playing against the second seed from Korea, and these other teams as well, and just showing their dominance against these teams and the ability to just outclass them simply in mechanics as well as team play, team fights, etc.
yeah, and it'll be super interesting to see going forward. I don't necessarily think we have a lot to add on any of the other teams in this
I
group.
don't think so. Other than DRX just won two of their games against FlyQuest and UOL, expected games, and
Yeah,
then FlyQuest beating UOL, and then losing to DRX and Top Esports, obviously. So it's kind of just what we kind of really
yeah,
expected from this group.
yeah, and it's good to see that we haven't seen as many of the inconsistencies from DRX as we would have expected. That mainly only reared its head against possibly the best team in the tournament, Top Esports, where DRX had a massive lead throughout lots of periods of the game. And draft that DRX went for and some excellent play from Top. They were able to claw that back, but against Top Esports, I don't necessarily think that DRX can feel too bad about that loss.
Yeah, no, I don't think they can. The first seed from China always going to be a super hard team to
Mm.
take down. But yeah, for me, I don't know about you. I think it's pretty obvious who's going to come out of this group. Um,
Yeah, I would expect the standings to stay exactly the same where they
yeah,
are.
me too. I think it's kind of no surprise this has happened with this group. Probably the most predictable group. So um, nothing else to really add. Do you have
Yeah,
anything else to add about this
yeah.
group or anything
No,
overall?
uh, uh, I think no, that this has been an absolutely phenomenal first week of Worlds. One of the best Worlds I think we've had so far with how close a lot of these groups are. And then in the groups where it's not close, the teams that are dominating are doing it in a style which is really entertaining to watch. And I think that that's really improving the viewer experience coming out of Worlds. And it makes me so excited for week two, starting on Thursday. We only have one day, but we don't have
Yeah,
games.
yeah, no, it's super exciting. And then G2 Team Liquid, the first game on Thursday. That's going to be a
It's gonna be a banger.
exactly.
It really is. I think there's coming into lots of other world group stages. There's only a couple of games each day that I really think of as games that are must watches that are going to be super interesting. But it seems like every day has almost all of the games are going to be super, super, super interesting in this world. So I cannot wait, and I would definitely to pick a day, tune into the Saturday for Group C, which is going to be phenomenal with how close that group is, possibly the closest world's group ever.
Yeah, definitely Saturday's going to be a big one, and we'll see who comes out on top, I guess, and then we'll have
Yes.
another episode probably the same time next week on Tuesday.
Same time next week with a group stage week two wrap up and a playoffs preview because we will know exactly which teams will be playing which in the quarterfinals. We'll be giving our thoughts on the end of groups and our predictions on the quarterfinals matchup. So you can expect all of that next week from us. But this is all we have time for. So thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to go and follow us on all of the socials that are just down below.
Indeed.
And we will speak to you all next time. Enjoy week two of Worlds.